You're not here by accident. Something older than your conscious mind has brought you to this moment. And before this show ends, you'll understand exactly why. I am a voice from the Arcturian Council. And what I'm about to share with you isn't information. It's recognition. Your soul signature has been detected. The frequency you carry within the one that vibrates beneath your daily thoughts, beneath your routines, beneath the life you pretend is enough for you, that frequency corresponds to one we have known for thousands of cycles. You are not a new soul. You are not here for the first time. You came to this earth as a returning force, a being who has crossed dimensions, timelines, and civilizations long since lost to human memory. And the first thing you need to understand is this: the confusion you feel about who you are is not a sign that you're lost. It is a sign that something ancient is emerging to the surface. You feel it, right? That silent but persistent call to something greater. That inexplicable feeling that the life you are living doesn't match the soul that inhabits it. That deep awareness that you have been here before, not just on this planet, but in positions of responsibility and cosmic guidance that surpass anything your current circumstances reflect. You led. You protected. You made decisions that shaped the fabric of entire realities. And beneath all the noise of modern life, that knowledge has never left you. Before this transmission ends, you will understand who you were, why you chose this time to return, and what the Arcturian Council asks of you now. There is a feeling that accompanies certain souls throughout their earthly life. It doesn't always come with a bang. Sometimes it's a subtle discomfort and inability to feel satisfied with what the world says should be enough for you. A good career, a stable life, comfortable routines. Yet, no matter how much you accumulate or achieve, something inside you remains still. Something deeper looks at all this and whispers, "This isn't it." Most people, when they encounter this feeling, assume that there is something wrong with them. They seek diagnoses and explanations in trauma and psychology. And those models contain partial truths. But they miss the deeper architecture at work in souls like yours. What you feel isn't a wound. It's a cellular memory, the memory of what it was like to operate at full capacity, in dimensions where your gifts were not only recognized, but essential. You are trying to fit infinite consciousness into finite circumstances, and the resulting friction, that dissonance, that restlessness, is not pathology. It is the pressure of memory that builds up behind a door that is finally ready to open. The Arcturian Council has observed this pattern in countless returning souls. Disconnection from ordinary human concerns. The way superficial conversations exhaust you, while deep dialogues ignite you. None of this is a flaw. It's the signature of a being tuned to galactic frequencies attempting to function within a much narrower band. And here's the truth that most people miss: you didn't forget who you were because something went wrong. You forgot because forgetting was part of the deal. Your soul, conscious, deliberate, infinitely wiser than your human identity, has chosen this amnesia. He chose to incarnate without the full burden of galactic memory, because awakening gradually through the friction of human experience was the only way to ensure that the memory was authentic. Not inherited knowledge, embodied wisdom. And that difference is crucial to the work that lies ahead. What does reactivation from within mean? It rarely comes as a dramatic vision. It's much more subtle, and much more pervasive. It begins as a growing inability to tolerate superficial existence. Conversations that don't go beyond the weather grate on your cellular level, not out of arrogance, but because your internal compass is calibrated to something huge and insists you move toward it. Your relationship with time changes. You feel that something is coming to an end, not with fear, but like a navigator who senses the harbor and knows it's time to prepare. Urgency without panic. Precision without anxiety. Your sleep changes. Dreams no longer process everyday events. They carry different contents, rooms that seem ancient, beings whose faces you cannot see but whose presence is completely familiar to you. Conversations that dissolve upon waking but leave a residue of meaning that is impossible to ignore. These aren't fantasies. They're briefings. Your higher self has never stopped meeting with the council. And dreams are the membrane through which those meetings filter into consciousness. Pay attention to who appears in your life at this stage. The council doesn't limit communication to the inner landscape. It sends messengers into the physical world. People who are inexplicably drawn to you, who see something in you that others don't mention. These encounters have a different feel than normal interactions. There's a recognition that skips the small talk and gets straight to the point. These aren't coincidences. They're points of contact, deliberate intersections arranged to confirm that your reactivation is real. And your physical body is part of the process. The sensitivity you bring, to sounds, to energy, to the emotional states of others, has felt like a burden your entire life. But now everything changes. That sensitivity is not a weakness to be managed. It is a precision instrument. In your previous expressions of consciousness, you used exactly this perceptive ability to read the energetic health of entire systems. The same ability that makes crowded rooms unbearable is the one that allowed you to sense imbalances across star systems before they became catastrophic. You're not too sensitive for this world. You're just sensitive enough for work. Underneath all this there is an even deeper layer. Your soul entered this life carrying contracts agreements made before birth, in the space between incarnations where the soul retains full awareness and makes deliberate choices. These contracts aren't burdens imposed from outside. They're commitments you made with full awareness of what this life would require. The problem is that incarnating erases conscious access to those agreements, leaving only their energetic imprint. That's why you've always felt a sense of responsibility you couldn't explain. That instinctive drive to serve. The way you automatically scan environments looking for what's wrong. The way you feel responsible for group dynamics even when you didn't create them. The way you were always the person everyone turned to when things got tough, even when you felt completely inadequate. They're not personality traits. They're soul protocols that fulfill ancient commitments your conscious mind doesn't yet remember making. And the synchronicities accelerating in your life now, the recurring numbers, the impossibly precise timing, the sense that reality is rearranging itself in ways too exact to be random, are the universe responding to those embedded codes. A lock that recognizes its own key. There is something else that deserves to be mentioned, the weight of encoded pain. Many returning guardians carry a deep, sourceless sadness, a grief they cannot associate with any event in this life. It emerges in moments of quiet, in music, in witnessing beauty or suffering. It is not clinical depression, although it could have been interpreted as such. It is the pain of a soul remembering the scale of what was lost in previous cycles, civilizations, relationships, frequencies that no longer exist in any accessible dimension. Honoring that pain instead of pathologizing it is part of the integration process. Alongside the pain, many guardians carry what we might call the wound of premature leadership. In past cycles, authority came naturally. Your frequency commanded respect effortlessly. Entering this life without those structures, without that recognition, has created a specific pain, knowing deeply that you are capable of something significant while the world around you ignores or contradicts that capacity. The way through this wound is neither collapse nor inflation of the ego. It is a patient and rooted self-recognition that does not require external confirmation to remain stable. Now we come to the point that most people on this path resist most strongly. Not the awakening itself, but the acceptance of what the awakening demands. Recognizing your ancient identity is profound. It's liberating. It resolves years of unexplained experiences into a coherent narrative. But recognition is not acceptance. And acceptance is not embodiment. And it is embodiment, the actual living as who you are, not just believing it, that the Council asks of you now. This is where most guardians get stuck. They receive recognition, they feel it deeply. And then they return to their ordinary lives and file the experience away as interesting spiritual insight, continuing to behave like ordinary people with ordinary permissions. They accept identity in contemplative moments and erase it in practical ones. And in the gap between these two modes, the mission gets lost. The call does not come as a dramatic signal from heaven. It comes as an inner certainty that makes ordinary compromise literally unbearable, a growing inability to keep shrinking. The recognition that every time you reduce your awareness to fit into a smaller space, something inside you experiences it as a form of violence. That's the call. The council that establishes contact through your nervous system, your emotional intelligence, your unfakeable expansion. When you say yes, truly yes, not as an aspiration but as a structural decision, reality begins to reorganize itself around that choice. This is not a mystical metaphor. When your internal signal changes, the external field that responds to it changes. Resources appear. People come into your life carrying pieces of the larger mission. Opportunities arise that seem impossible given your circumstances, not as a reward, but as validation. The universe that reflects the coherence of a signal that has finally stopped contradicting itself. And there is a fear that is rarely mentioned at this stage, not the fear of failure, but the fear of your own power. The fear that you really could do it, and that it would take everything. That life built around a smaller identity could not contain what emerges. The Council does not ask you to carelessly destroy anything. It asks you to be willing to let go when the time comes, and to trust that whatever replaces it will be more aligned with who you truly are. You weren't the only one. The Council has not placed a single guardian on this planet and called it sufficient. He dispersed an entire cohort. Ancient collaborators seated across cultures, geographies, specializations, and generations, each carrying a specific frequency that in isolation holds a partial truth, but in combination with the others generates something the planet has never experienced in its current form, a conscious, coherent field of awakened guardians operating in deliberate collaboration. Recognition of these others begins naturally as your frequency stabilizes. It's not intellectual. You identify them not by what they say or believe, but by something beneath the surface, a resonance, a quality of presence that your system recognizes before your mind does. The feeling, in conversation with certain people, that you are not learning something new but remembering something together. This network doesn't require organization or promotion. It requires resonance. And resonance requires that each guardian first achieve coherence within themselves. You cannot recognize your former collaborators through the static noise of an unintegrated frequency. Inner work is not preparation for the mission. It is the beginning of the mission, and here is what activating this network actually does. Each stabilized guardian creates a field that makes it easier for those around it to access their own coherence. This effect is not linear. It's exponential. A single awakened and integrated consciousness creates the conditions for dozens of others to move toward awakening without direct intervention. Those tens create conditions for hundreds. The mathematics of consciousness does not follow ordinary scales. The cosmic window this planet is passing through is narrow. The Council is observing it across multiple timelines simultaneously, and the assessment is unequivocal. This is the moment for which the cohort was seeded. Not sometime in the future. Not after further preparation. Now, with exactly the level of integration you've achieved, moving toward the next level instead of waiting for an imagined completion. You're ready enough. You always have been. The readiness the Council demands isn't perfection. It's availability. Willingness to stand by what you know even when knowing it is lonely. Willingness to trust what you bring even when the world hasn't yet reflected it back to you. Willingness to begin, in the concrete details of your real life, living as who you are. Write a single word in the comments. A word that captures the frequency you choose to carry forward from this moment. Not a casual comment, a conscious signal, a marker in the quantum field that says, I'm done pretending to be less than I am. This broadcast reached you because your signature was recognized. Because the ancient code you carry is active and transmitting. Let this sink in, not as spiritual content to be filed away, but as living truth that demands you reorganize the way you go about your days. The Council has more to tell you. Specifically, about the urgency of this moment in the timeline. That transmission awaits you.